In the early 1500s, probably around 1507, Michelangelo painted a Holy Family on a round-shaped panel for the rich Florentine merchant Agnolo Doni, who enjoyed to collect beautiful things from both ancient and modern authors. This painting is the only panel unanimously attributed to Michelangelo, and it is best known as Doni Tondo, from the name of his buyer. The round shape was commonly used in Florentine tradition to celebrate the birth of a child. The panel is now conserved at the Uffizi in Florence, and it is still in its original frame, probably designed by Michelangelo and superbly carved by Marco and Francesco del Tasso. It was painted after the sculpture of David, and it clearly reflects, in the colors which shape the volumes, the experience of Michelangelo as a sculptor. The panel anticipates Michelangelo's work in the Sistine Chapel ceiling and has an evident role in determining the canons of painting during the whole 16th century, initiating the period of Mannerism. The use of the colors in this painting is noteworthy. It is perfectly coherent with the bright colors of the Sistine Chapel ceiling, recovered by the 1980s restoration. This is a good point against the criticism revealed to the restoration.
World War II created a major conflict amongst many artworks scattered globally. The Nazi plunder, which refers to the theft of art and other items stolen as a result of the organized looting of European countries during the time of the Third Reich, was detrimental to the history of art. Plundering occurred from 1933 until the end of World War II, particularly by military units, although most plunder was acquired during the war. Luckily, the Doni Tondo was never taken and destroyed by the Nazis. Instead, the artwork was removed from the Uffizi Gallery and hidden from the Nazis' looting and bombing in the Medici villa of Poggio a Ciano, and then in Castello de' Poppi. The removal of the painting saved its existence and has allowed for its display in the newly reconstructed Uffizi Gallery.
The Virgin Mary is the most prominent figure in the composition, taking up much of the center of the image. Mary sits directly on the ground, without a cushion between herself and the ground, to better communicate the theme of her relationship to the earth. The grass, directly below the figure, is green, which sharply contrasts to the grassless ground surrounding her, although the green is now darker and less visible than it was originally. Saint Joseph has a higher position in the image compared to Mary, perhaps as the head of the family or as if he was protecting her. There is some debate as to whether Mary is receiving the Christ child from Joseph or vice versa. St. John the Baptist, the patron saint of Florence, is very commonly included in Florentine works depicting the Madonna and Child. He is in the middle ground of the painting, between the Holy Family and the background. The elements around the family include plants and perhaps water. Just between the foreground and John is a horizontal curb or band that serves as a separation. In the background, on both sides, are 5 nudes, and historians are still undecided as to whether their significance in the whole is part of the work. Behind the nude figures and forming the backdrop for the entire round painting is a landscape of rocky hills.
The Tondo has a magnificent wooden frame, probably carved by members of the Tasso family. The 5 heads depict Jesus, 2 prophets, and 2 sibyls. The frame also shows the coats of arms of the Doni and Strozzi families. Agnolo was married to Maddalena Strozzi. The frame is ornately carved and rather unusual for the 5 heads it contains, which protrude 3-dimensionally into space. Similar to the nudes of the background, the meanings of these heads has been subject to speculation. The frame also contains carvings of crescent moons, stars, vegetation, and lion heads. These symbols are, perhaps, references to the Doni and Strozzi families, taken from each one's coat of arms. As depicted on the frame, the moons are bound together with ribbons that interlock with the lions, possibly referencing the marriage of the 2 families. The frame is just as important as the painting itself. The painting contains great meaning and symbolism, but the frame tells the story of the family as a whole, the Doni and the Strozzi.
The Doni Tondo is known to be the only time Michelangelo painted without an assistant. As such, it employs and exemplifies many of his signature techniques and methods he would put to masterful use in later and larger works. The figures, in draped clothing, have the smooth and slightly unreal look of sculpture, and the contrast between brighter and more subdued colors is striking. He uses a shading method that lends a softer, almost unfocused quality to the background figures, while making sure that the primary figures stand out in sharp detail. From the artistic point of view, the Doni Tondo laid the foundations of the so-called mannerism, the style of painting that preferred bizarre, unnatural poses and iridescent colors to the composed paintings of the XV century. This makes the painting extremely important as it started the mannerism trend, which was a style of painting that was only alive for a couple of decades.
Doni Tondo now resides in the Uffizi Gallery. The second floor of the Uffizi Gallery is a floor dedicated to Michelangelo. The room was reconstructed and presented on January 29, 2013. The pinnacle of this project was the reinstallation of Michelangelo's masterpiece, Doni Tondo, to the new Michelangelo room. The oil and tempera on panel painting is the only confirmed panel painting of Michelangelo's that has survived and is still in its original frame, which was also cleaned in preparation for the reinstallation. The gallery's excitement to add the Doni Tondo to the room shows the importance of the painting.